The restaurant was the kind of place where discretion came standard with the reservation. Dim lighting, private corners, servers who knew when to disappear. Rafael De Luca preferred it that way. He conducted half his business in places like this, where quiet conversations could seal deals worth millions or end careers with a single word. Tonight was supposed to be routine. A weapons distributor from the East Coast, 15 minutes, maybe 20. In and out before midnight. But the moment Rafael stepped through the entrance, his polished shoes barely crossing the threshold, something felt wrong. The air shifted. His security detail flanked the doorway as always, silent, alert, invisible to most patrons. Rafael moved through the space with the controlled precision of a man who owned every room he entered. His tailored suit fit like armor. His expression was carved from stone. People didn't just notice him, they felt him, the way you feel a storm building on the horizon. He scanned the restaurant out of habit. Table arrangements. Exit points. Faces that might matter. Then he saw her. Everything stopped. His breath. His stride. The careful rhythm of his heartbeat. Sandra Hayes. If this story touches your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Comment where you're listening from. And if you feel it was really worth it, consider becoming a member to get early access to upcoming stories. Your support makes all the difference. She sat at a table near the far wall, bathed in the warm glow of a pendant light. Her dark hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders, not the severe bun she wore at the office. Her dress was elegant, black, simple but devastating in its cut. She looked different. Softer. Unguarded. Beautiful in a way Rafael had trained himself not to see during work hours. And she was laughing. Not the polite, professional smile she gave him when he handed her files. Not the tight-lipped expression she wore when dodging his temper. A real laugh. Genuine. The kind that lit up her entire face and made her eyes crinkle at the corners. Rafael's jaw locked so hard he thought his teeth might crack. She wasn't alone. Across from her sat a man. Clean-cut. Caucasian. Probably mid-30s with an easy smile and the relaxed posture of someone who had never killed anyone, never ordered a hit, never stood in a room and decided who lived and who didn't. Normal. Safe. Everything Rafael was not. The man leaned forward, saying something that made Sandra tilt her head and laugh again. He reached across the table, casual, confident, and his fingers brushed her wrist. Rafael felt something crack open inside his chest. Something hot and furious and completely out of his control. Who the hell is he? The question roared through his mind like thunder. A server approached with a practiced smile. Good evening, Mr. De Luca. Your usual table? Rafael didn't answer. He couldn't tear his eyes away from the scene unfolding 20 feet from him. Sandra was smiling at the stranger like he was someone worth her time. Like he was someone who mattered. Like Rafael didn't exist. The server followed his gaze and immediately understood. Her smile faltered. Ah. Would you prefer a table with a clear view? Rafael's voice was low, steady, lethal. Now. She nodded quickly and led him to a table positioned at a perfect angle. Close enough to see everything. Far enough to maintain the illusion of distance. Rafael sat but didn't open the menu. Food was irrelevant. His entire focus had narrowed to a single point, Sandra Hayes, his secretary, his right hand, the woman who organized his empire with ruthless efficiency, sitting across from a man who was touching her like he had the right. The man laughed. Too loud. Too comfortable. Raphael's eyelid twitched. Boss. One of his men, Marco, approached the table and lowered his voice. The distributor is running late. Maybe 10 minutes. Sit. Marco hesitated, then slid into the chair across from him. Everything all right? Tell me what you see. Raphael's tone was flat, emotionless. Marco's eyes tracked across the restaurant, landing on Sandra's table. Recognition flickered across his face. That's Miss Hayes, isn't it? With some guy. Some guy, Raphael repeated slowly, as if testing how the words tasted. They tasted like broken glass. Looks like a date, boss. The silence that followed was suffocating. Raphael didn't move. Didn't blink. His hands rested on the table, fingers splayed, knuckles pale with tension. He watched Sandra lean back in her chair, relaxed in a way she never was around him. Her hair caught the light as she tucked a strand behind her ear. The man said something else, and she responded with that same genuine warmth that made Raphael's blood boil. She looked happy. Not stressed. Not walking on eggshells. Not bracing for his temper or his demands. Just happy. With someone else. The man reached for his phone, glanced at the screen, then stood from the table. Maybe a call. Maybe the restroom. It didn't matter. What mattered was that he left her alone. Raphael rose from his chair before the thought fully formed. Boss, Marco's warning was barely a whisper. But Raphael was already moving. His stride was purposeful, controlled, predatory. He crossed the restaurant like a shadow falling over light. Each step brought him closer to the woman who had somehow become the center of his universe without him noticing, until right now, when the thought of losing her made him feel like his chest was caving in. Sandra was looking at the dessert menu when she heard the footsteps. Something in her posture changed. A subtle tension. Recognition. She looked up. Her eyes widened. The menu slipped from her fingers, nearly knocking over her wine glass. Raphael. His name left her lips like an accusation. Like a prayer. Like a question she wasn't ready to ask. He stopped at her table, towering over her with those dark, unreadable eyes that had made grown men confess their sins. His presence swallowed the space. The restaurant seemed to dim around them. When he finally spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. Sandra. Sandra's face went through 3 distinct emotions in the span of a heartbeat. Shock. Anger. Then something that looked like resignation, as if she'd been expecting this moment and dreading it in equal measure. What are you doing here? Her voice was steady, but Raphael caught the slight tremor underneath. I could ask you the same question. He pulled out the empty chair, Jerry's chair, and sat without invitation. The leather creaked under his weight. But I think the answer is obvious. This is a public restaurant, Raphael. I'm allowed to. Who is he? The question cut through her deflection like a blade. Sandra's jaw tightened. She set down her wine glass with deliberate care, the kind of control people used when they wanted to throw something instead. That's none of your business. Everything about you is my business. No. The word came out sharp, final. My work is your business. What I do from 9 to 6, the files I manage, the calls I screen, the meetings I schedule, that's your business. My life is mine. Raphael leaned forward, his tattooed forearms resting on the table. The ink seemed to shift in the low light, serpents coiling tighter. You think you can just what? Have dinner? Laugh? Exist outside your office? Sandra's eyes flashed. I don't belong to you, Raphael. The words hit him like a physical blow, but he masked it with a cold smile. I never said you did. Then why are you here? She leaned forward too, matching his intensity. Why are you sitting at my table, interrogating me about a man whose name you don't even know? Security. The lie tasted bitter. Anyone close to you is a potential. Don't. Sandra's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending this is about protection. This is about control. This is about you not being able to handle the fact that I have a life you're not part of. Raphael's hands curled into fists under the table. Every instinct screamed at him to assert dominance, to remind her exactly who he was and what he could do. But something in her eyes stopped him. Defiance. Disappointment. A line he was dangerously close to crossing. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. Around them, other diners pretended not to notice, but he could feel their awareness, their fear. Enjoy your evening, Miss Hayes. The formality was a weapon. He turned to Marco, who had stayed a respectful distance away. Get me everything on him. Name. Address. Employment. Bank records. I want to know what he eats for breakfast. Boss, maybe. Everything. Raphael's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. By morning. He walked toward the exit without looking back, his heart hammering against his ribs. Behind him, he heard Sandra's exhale, relief or fury, he couldn't tell. It didn't matter. She'd said her life was hers. He was about to prove exactly how wrong she was. The office felt different the moment Raphael stepped through the door at 8:45 the next morning. The usual rhythm stuttered. Conversations died mid-sentence. Keyboards fell silent. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Sandra stood at her desk just outside his office, phone pressed to her ear, finishing a call with a supplier. Her posture was perfect, professional, exactly as it always was. But when she glanced up and their eyes met for a fraction of a second, something cold passed between them. Then Raphael looked away. He walked past her desk without a word. No, good morning. No acknowledgement. Nothing. The door to his office closed with a quiet click that sounded like a gunshot. Sandra's hand tightened around the phone. She finished the call on autopilot, her mind elsewhere, and slowly lowered herself into her chair. This was going to be a long day. By 10 o'clock, the silence had become oppressive. Raphael hadn't buzzed her intercom once. Hadn't asked for files. Hadn't demanded coffee or summoned her for the morning briefing they'd conducted every weekday for the past 2 years. Nothing. Sandra tried to focus on the quarterly report spread across her desk, but the numbers blurred together. She could feel him in there, just beyond that closed door, radiating displeasure like heat from a furnace. When Marco approached her desk at 10:30, she nearly jumped. He needs these signed. Marco placed a stack of contracts in front of her, then hesitated. Is everything? I mean, should I just leave them? Sandra's voice was clipped. I'll handle it. She waited until Marco disappeared down the hallway, then gathered the contracts and knocked on Raphael's door. 2 sharp raps. Come in. She entered to find him standing at the window, hands clasped behind his back, staring out at the city skyline. He didn't turn around. The Merino contracts need your signature. Sandra crossed to his desk and set them down with deliberate precision. The deadline is tomorrow. Silence. She waited. 5 seconds. 10. Raphael, Leave them on the desk. His voice was ice. I'll review them when I have time. Sandra's jaw clenched. This was punishment. Calculated, deliberate punishment designed to remind her of her place, to make her feel his displeasure in every ignored word and dismissed gesture. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. This is childish. His reflection appeared in the window glass, dark eyes finally meeting hers. Excuse me? You heard me. She gripped the door handle. Whatever point you're trying to make, it's been made. We both have work to do. Then do it. The dismissal was absolute. Sandra left, closing the door harder than necessary. Back at her desk, she tried to breathe normally. Tried to ignore the way her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her keyboard. The war had officially begun. The intercom buzzed at 2:30, shattering the fragile silence Sandra had wrapped around herself like armor. My office. Now. No please. No explanation. Just a command delivered in that low, dangerous voice that made lesser people confess their sins. Sandra stood, smoothed her skirt, and walked the 10 feet that felt like a mile. She closed the door behind her with a soft click. Raphael sat behind his desk, a folder open in front of him. Jerry's background check, she realized with a sinking feeling. Of course he'd actually done it. Sit down. I'd rather stand. His eyes lifted, meeting hers with an intensity that could melt steel. I said sit. Sandra remained standing. What do you want, Raphael? He leaned back in his leather chair, the picture of controlled power. Jerry Allen. Age 34. Marketing consultant. Clean record. No debts. No criminal ties. He paused, letting each word land like a stone in still water. Divorced 2 years ago. Lives alone in a modest apartment in Brooklyn. Congratulations on your stalking. Sandra's voice was acid. Is there a point to this? The point is that you're meeting strangers without proper vetting. Anyone close to someone in my organization becomes a potential target. A liability. Your organization. Sandra crossed her arms. I'm your secretary, not your soldier. You have access to sensitive information. Meeting dates, financial records, names of people who would pay millions to. Stop. She took a step closer to his desk. Just stop with this performance. Raphael's jaw tightened. Performance? This isn't about security. This isn't about protecting classified information or vetting potential threats. Sandra's voice rose despite her efforts to control it. You are not worried about safety, Raphael. You are jealous. The word hung in the air between them like a grenade with the pin pulled. Careful. His voice dropped to a deadly whisper. You're crossing a line. I crossed it last night when I dared to have dinner with another man. Sandra planted her hands on his desk, leaning forward. When I laughed with him. When I looked happy without your permission. Raphael stood abruptly, his chair rolling back. They were suddenly face to face across the desk, close enough that she could see the muscle twitching in his jaw, the way his pupils had dilated. You think you know what this is about? I know exactly what this is about. Her heart pounded, but she held her ground. You've spent 2 years treating me like an employee, keeping everything professional, maintaining distance. But the second you see me with someone else, suddenly I'm your concern? Your responsibility? Because you are. The admission came out raw, unfiltered. Everything in my world, everyone around me, they're mine to protect, mine to control, Sandra finished. That's what you mean. Not protect. Control. Raphael's hands curled into fists at his sides. The tattoos on his forearms seemed to writhe with his tension. You don't understand the dangers. I understand perfectly. Sandra straightened. And my answer is still no. You don't own me, Raphael. Not my time. Not my choices. Not me. She turned and walked toward the door. We're not finished. Sandra looked back over her shoulder. Yes. We are. Raphael heard her voice through the partially open door of the break room. He'd been walking past, heading toward the east wing for a meeting with his accountant, when Sandra's words stopped him cold. I'm seeing him again Friday. A pause, then a soft laugh. No, it's not serious. It's just nice. He shouldn't stop. Shouldn't listen. But his feet refused to move. Because he's normal, Mia. Sandra's voice carried a warmth he recognized from the restaurant. He works a regular job. Goes home to a regular apartment. Probably watches Netflix and orders takeout like a regular person. Another pause. Raphael stepped closer to the wall, invisible in the shadowed hallway. Safe, Sandra said finally. He's safe. No danger. No weapons. No men in suits following him everywhere. No. Her voice dropped lower. No explosive temper that makes everyone in the room hold their breath. Raphael's jaw clenched so hard he thought his teeth might crack. He's the complete opposite of, Sandra stopped herself. Never mind. Friday at 7. Same place. The sound of her footsteps approached the door. Raphael moved quickly, silently, continuing down the hallway as if he'd heard nothing. But he'd heard everything. Back in his office, he stared at Jerry Allen's background report for the third time that day. The man was aggressively ordinary. College degree. Steady employment. Paid his taxes. Volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends, for God's sake. Clean. Boring. Safe. Everything Raphael could never be. He picked up his phone, scrolled to Marco's number, then stopped. His thumb hovered over the screen. What was he doing? Sandra had made her position clear. She wanted boundaries. Distance. A life separate from the violence and chaos that followed him like a shadow. She wanted normal. She wanted safe. She wanted someone who wasn't him. Raphael set the phone down, then immediately picked it up again. He thought about her laugh at that restaurant. The way she'd leaned forward, relaxed and open. The way she'd looked at that ordinary man like he was worth her time. The way she'd never looked at Raphael. His finger pressed the call button before logic could intervene. Boss? Friday night. Sandra's going on another date with Alan. Same restaurant, 7 o'clock. Raphael's voice was flat, mechanical. I want you there an hour early. Secure the perimeter. Make sure. Boss, with respect, maybe you should. Make sure nothing happens to her. The words came out sharper than intended. Just watch. Keep distance. Report any concerns. And if there are no concerns? Raphael stared at his reflection in the darkened window. His eyes looked hollow, almost desperate. When had that happened? Then you report that too. He ended the call and tossed the phone onto his desk. It clattered against Jerry's file, knocking it open to a page with the man's photo. Smiling. Harmless. Normal. The complete opposite of terrifying. Raphael grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. He had 3 days to figure out what the hell he was going to do. 3 days before Sandra chose safety over him. 3 days to prove that maybe, just maybe, he could be something other than the monster she was trying to forget. Or 3 days to lose her completely. Raphael told himself he was there for security purposes. Checking the area. Ensuring his assistant wasn't walking into danger. Perfectly reasonable for a man in his position. The lie tasted like ash. He sat in the back of his Range Rover, parked across the street from the restaurant, watching the entrance like a predator tracking prey. Marcos sat in the driver's seat, wisely saying nothing. At 7:15, Sandra arrived. She wore a deep blue dress that caught the streetlight, her hair swept to one side, exposing the elegant line of her neck. She looked beautiful. Nervous. She checked her phone once before pushing through the glass doors. Raphael's hands clenched in his lap. Jerry arrived 10 minutes later, holding flowers. White roses. How original. Boss, maybe we should stay here. Raphael opened the door. I'm going in. That's not checking the area. That's. I know what it is. The restaurant greeted him with soft jazz and dim lighting. He spotted them immediately, same table as before, near the window. Sandra had her back partially to him, but he could see Jerry's face clearly, animated, smiling, completely oblivious to the storm approaching. Raphael moved to a corner table, partially obscured by a decorative column. Close enough to see. Far enough to maintain the pretense of coincidence if needed. He ordered whiskey and didn't touch it. Sandra laughed at something Jerry said. That same genuine laugh that had started this entire spiral. She looked relaxed, leaning back in her chair, twirling her wine glass between elegant fingers. Then Jerry reached across the table. His hand covered Sandra's wrist. Gentle. Familiar. The touch of someone who thought he had the right. Something snapped inside Raphael's chest. He stood before conscious thought could intervene. His chair scraped against the floor. Around him, nearby diners glanced up, then quickly looked away when they saw his face. He crossed the restaurant in 6 long strides. Sandra saw him first. Her eyes widened, wine glass freezing halfway to her lips. No. Jerry turned, confused. Is something. Get your hand off her. Raphael's voice was quiet, lethal. Jerry pulled back instinctively, looking between them. I'm sorry, who are you? Someone who's done being patient. Raphael's gaze locked on Sandra. We need to talk. Sandra's face flushed with anger. You can't be serious right now. Completely serious. Jerry stood, attempting to place himself between them. Brave. Stupid. Listen, I don't know what this is about, but the lady clearly doesn't want. The lady works for me. Raphael didn't even look at him. And right now, she's coming outside. Like hell I am. Sandra stood too, her chair nearly toppling. You have no right to. Outside, Sandra. Or I have this conversation right here, in front of everyone. His eyes promised he wasn't bluffing. Your choice. Her jaw clenched. For a moment, he thought she might actually refuse. Might call his bluff and force him to back down in front of a restaurant full of witnesses. Then she grabbed her purse. This is unbelievable. She turned to Jerry, whose confusion had morphed into concern. I'm so sorry. I'll call you Sandra, if you're in some kind of trouble. She's not. Raphael stepped aside, gesturing toward the door. After you. The look Sandra gave him could have drawn blood. But she walked, heels clicking against the floor like gunshots, leaving Jerry standing alone at their table, holding white roses that were already beginning to wilt. The night air hit them like a slap. Sandra spun on him the moment they cleared the restaurant entrance, her eyes blazing with fury. What is wrong with you? Raphael stood there, chest heaving, looking like a man who'd just run a marathon. What's wrong with me? You're the one. I'm the one what? Living my life? Trying to have one normal evening without your shadow looming over everything? Her voice cracked. You humiliated me in there. Again. He was touching you. So what? Sandra threw her hands up. He's kind, Raphael. He's gentle and steady, and he doesn't make me feel like I'm walking on a knife's edge every second of every day. Then why are you out here with me instead of in there with him? The question hung between them, unanswered. Sandra's shoulders sagged. Because you gave me an ultimatum. Because you always do. Because somehow, you've made it impossible for me to have anything that's mine. That's not. Yes, it is. She stepped closer, jabbing a finger at his chest. Jerry doesn't carry a gun. He doesn't have men following him. He goes to work, comes home, lives a normal life. He's safe. He's predictable. He's everything you're not. I know. The admission came out raw. Then why? Sandra's voice broke. Why can't you let me have that? Why can't you just let me go? Raphael's carefully constructed walls cracked. Because I can't. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture uncharacteristically vulnerable. You think I don't know what I am? What I do? I've built my entire life on control, Sandra. Every decision, every move, every relationship, calculated, planned, controlled. Then control this. Walk away. I can't. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Because it's not about control anymore. It's fear. Sandra froze. What? Fear, he repeated, the words seeming to cost him everything. You walk into my office every morning with your coffee and your schedules and your organized chaos, and suddenly everything I've built doesn't feel as solid. You challenge me. You push back. You make me question things I've never questioned. Raphael. You change things, Sandra. In my head. In my routine. In my control. He looked at her with raw, unguarded eyes. And it terrifies me because I don't know how to handle it. I don't know how to handle you. She stared at him, lips parted in shock. So yes, I followed you. Yes, I interrupted your date. Yes, I'm standing here like a jealous bastard instead of the rational man I'm supposed to be. His hands clenched at his sides. Because the thought of you choosing safety over me, choosing him over me, choosing a life where I don't exist. He stopped, jaw working. It's breaking something inside me I didn't know could break. Sandra's eyes glistened. You can't just say that and expect. I'm not expecting anything. His voice was hoarse. I'm just telling you the truth. The restaurant door opened behind them. Jerry stepped out, looking uncomfortable but determined, the white roses still clutched in one hand. Sandra, I just wanted to make sure you're okay. His eyes flicked to Raphael with obvious wariness. If you need me to call someone. She doesn't. Raphael's response was automatic, territorial. Jerry ignored him, focusing on Sandra. Look, I think there's been some confusion about what this is. Sandra turned to him, wiping at her eyes quickly. Jerry, I'm so sorry. You should go back inside and... Your cousin set this up, right? Jerry interrupted gently. Mia called me 3 weeks ago, said you needed to get out more. Relax. Distress from a demanding job. Sandra went very still. I'm recently divorced. Not looking for anything serious. She thought we could be friends, grab dinner, help each other through rough patches. Jerry offered an apologetic smile. I wasn't trying to start a romance, Sandra. I was just trying to be a decent friend. The silence that followed was deafening. Raphael's entire body tensed. You're not dating. Not really. Jerry shrugged. I mean, these were nice evenings, but I got the impression Sandra's heart was somewhere else anyway. He glanced between them, understanding dawning. Or with someone else. Sandra's face flushed crimson. Jerry. It's fine. Really. Jerry handed her the roses. I hope you figure this out. But maybe next time, have the conversation before your boss shows up looking like he's about to commit murder. He nodded once at Raphael, a gesture somewhere between respect and relief, then headed down the sidewalk toward the parking lot. Raphael turned to Sandra slowly. Somewhere else. Someone else. Don't. You weren't dating him. His voice was dangerously quiet. You were using him. I was trying to move on. Sandra's hands trembled around the roses. Trying to forget someone who makes my life impossible. Someone who tears through my boundaries like they don't exist. Someone who... Who? The question was a demand. Sandra met his eyes, hers bright with unshed tears and fury and something that looked terrifyingly like surrender. You. I was trying to forget you. The words crashed into him like a physical blow. You wanted Jerry because he was safe. Normal. The opposite of me. Raphael stepped closer, his voice dropping. But you weren't trying to find him. You were trying to lose me. Yes. The admission came out broken. Because you're chaos and danger and you make me feel things I have no business feeling for my boss. Things that could get me killed or worse. So yes, I tried to forget. I tried to choose safety. And did it work? Sandra's laugh was bitter. Does it look like it worked? Raphael reached out slowly, carefully, and took the roses from her shaking hands. He dropped them on the ground without breaking eye contact. Don't do that again. His voice was rough with emotion. Try to forget me. That's not a request I can. I know. He moved closer still, until there was barely space between them. Because I'm not letting you. Sandra's breath hitched. Raphael. No more Jerry. No more safe. No more running. His hand came up to cup her face. Understood. She should argue. Should push him away. Should demand he respect her choices. Instead, she whispered, understood. Monday morning arrived with unexpected quiet. Sandra approached her desk at 8:30, coffee in hand, bracing for whatever came next. After Friday night, after everything that had been said and admitted and surrendered, she wasn't sure what to expect. What she found was a small black box sitting precisely in the center of her desk. No note. No explanation. Just the box, elegant and unmarked. Sandra set down her coffee and lifted the lid with careful fingers. Inside, nestled in black velvet, were 2 items. A security badge with her name and photo, the kind that granted access to Raphael's private floors and secure areas. And beneath it, a single brass key attached to a leather fob embossed with her apartment address. Her breath caught. The door to Raphael's office opened. He emerged, dressed in a charcoal suit that made him look every inch the dangerous man he was. But his expression was different. Softer somehow, though still guarded. "You changed my locks." Sandra's voice was barely above a whisper. "Had them changed Saturday morning." Raphael crossed to her desk, hands sliding into his pockets. "Higher grade. Digital backup. The key is a failsafe." "Why?" "Because you were right." The admission seemed to cost him. "About boundaries. About privacy. About me trying to control things that aren't mine to control." Sandra lifted the key, watching it catch the light. "This is my apartment, Raphael. My space." "I know. So why give me better locks and then give yourself?" She stopped, understanding dawning. "You're giving me the only copy." "Yes. You're not keeping one." "No." He leaned against her desk, close enough that she could smell his cologne. "That's your door, Sandra. Your choice who comes through it. Including me." Her throat tightened. "And the badge?" "Different kind of access." His dark eyes held hers. "You've always had clearance to my files, my schedules, my business. This just makes it official. Complete access. No restrictions. That's not protocol. Your security team will follow my orders." Raphael's voice was firm. "I want you to have access to everything. Not because I'm forcing it on you, but because I trust you with it." Sandra turned the badge over in her hands. Her photo looked back at her, professional and composed. Nothing like the woman who'd fallen apart on a sidewalk 3 nights ago. "This is you respecting boundaries by giving me keys to your kingdom? This is me showing you that trust goes both ways." He reached out, his finger brushing the edge of the badge. "You wanted privacy. You wanted me to stop treating you like property. So your apartment is yours, with security I can't bypass. But my world?" His voice dropped. "That's ours now. If you want it." Sandra looked up at him. "And if I don't?" "Then you leave the badge on the desk and walk away." His jaw tightened. "And I let you." The words hung between them, weighted with meaning. Sandra closed the box with a soft click. Then she clipped the badge to her jacket lapel and slipped the key into her purse. "Okay." Raphael's entire body seemed to exhale. "Okay. But Raphael?" She met his eyes. "If you ever follow me on another date, there won't be other dates." He said it with absolute certainty. "Not for either of us." Sandra's lips curved into the smallest smile. Presumptuous. Accurate. This time, she didn't argue. 3 months later, Sandra walked into Raphael's office carrying 2 espressos and a file that needed his signature before noon. The morning sun cut through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting everything in shades of gold. Raphael looked up from his laptop, and something in his expression softened. Not the dangerous Mafia boss. Just the man who'd learned to let someone in. "You're wearing it." His eyes dropped to the pendant at her throat, a simple gold chain with a small key. Not the apartment key. A different one. Symbolic. Every day. Sandra set his espresso down, her fingers brushing his. "You complaining?" "Never." He caught her hand before she could pull away, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. The gesture was possessive, yes, but different now. Chosen. Mutual. Marco knocked and entered without waiting. Boss, the shipment from, he stopped, seeing them. Sorry, I can come back. No need. Raphael released Sandra's hand but kept his eyes on her. What's the issue? As Marco detailed the logistics problem, Sandra moved to the side table where she kept her organized chaos of schedules and contracts. She'd long since stopped pretending she was just his secretary. Executive assistant, some called it. Partner, others whispered. Raphael's partner. The phrase had caused ripples through his organization. Some questioned it. Most accepted it once they saw how she operated, efficient, unflinching, and just as protective of Raphael's interests as he was. Sandra. Raphael's voice pulled her back. Marco had left. They were alone again. Come here. She crossed to him, and he pulled her down onto his lap without ceremony. His arms wrapped around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. You're going to wrinkle your suit, she murmured, but made no move to leave. Don't care. His voice was muffled against her neck. Long morning. It's only 10. Exactly. Sandra smiled, running her fingers through his hair. This version of Raphael still startled her sometimes. Still dangerous. Still commanding. Still the man who could silence a room with a look. But with her, he'd learned to let go. Not of her, never of her, but of the suffocating need to control everything about her. What are you thinking? She asked quietly. Raphael was silent for a moment, his arms tightening slightly. That I spent years thinking control was the only thing keeping my world intact. And now? Now I know I was holding on to the wrong things. He lifted his head, turning her to face him. Power. Territory. Fear. All of it was just noise. Sandra cupped his face, thumb tracing the line of his jaw. And what's not noise? This. His hand covered hers. You. Us. His dark eyes held hers with an intensity that still made her breath catch. Turns out the right thing to hold on to was the one thing I kept trying to control instead of trust. Took you long enough to figure that out. Some of us are slow learners. His lips curved into a rare, genuine smile. But I got there eventually. Sandra leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his. So who is he? She whispered, echoing that question that had started everything. This man who finally learned to let go. Raphael's answer was simple, certain, permanent. Yours. And for the first time in his carefully controlled life, Raphael De Luca meant it completely. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Comment where you're listening from. And if you felt it was really worth it, consider becoming a member to get early access to upcoming stories. And if you felt this story was really worth listening to, click the super thanks button. Your gesture makes all the difference and helps us continue creating stories that touch the soul.